Until I do one day. All right, and I'm going to share my screen. Give me a moment. There we have it. Good to see everybody. Welcome to the end of October. Then let me go through my normal things, especially for the folks that are new on the call. This session is recorded and transcribed, and we will use it in some of our marketing. Just let you know that. We intend the session to be very interactive, so please do turn your cameras on. We like to see the faces of the folks we're talking with. And use the chat for questions. There's always good discussion. Robert Snyder is always very good at chat. Thank you, Robert, for always keeping some conversation going there. And if you're in transition or whatever, and you want to tell people that, go ahead. Like, we should all be here helping each other out, seeing if we can help people land in new gigs. It's a 45-minute session. Oh my gosh. Look, I didn't change. The topic is going to be from I'm not going to fix it right now. From Edge Coble, who's on. Please don't be offended, Edge.
I don't take it personally.
Thank you. As you might imagine, I do kind of copy paste these things, and so we'll get into that just momentarily. These sessions we hold monthly. Lately they've been more like I would say around 15 people. It's been a while since we've had one as small as 5. We do brief learning. Edge has got some really interesting slides that I'm excited about. And then we'll focus on some real-time problems that you all have. I noted several challenges in the registration questions, and there's a few that I definitely want to cover with you all on the call today, and hopefully we fix a couple things. All right. As always, please respect your peers. Don't share information that is confidential to your company, and please do speak up and be helpful to each other. Before we get started, so a couple things in the spirit of continuous improvement. Chris and I have been chatting about how we continue to improve upon what we feel is a good model. And one of the things that I often hear from folks when I'm interacting with them on LinkedIn is, yeah, this is interesting, but I can't attend this month. Keep me in mind for next month or something like that. And they thought, well, maybe it should just be as simple as when you go to our landing page, you can select whichever months you want to attend and register that way. So we're kind of talking through how to do that. None of this is hard, but none of it is easy kind of thing. So we probably will change a little bit in our registration process. But we want to be a little careful about how much time and effort we invest in that. We are going to refresh the page too, just so there's maybe a little bit of video. And Chris, I thought about this too, as we thought about the mock-up for the page. A couple places for some video content from some snippets so people can kind of see what this is like. I think we should add that in there as well. And we've also kind of talked about some new points of content, like a CI win of the week, or prompts during the month, or create a badge on LinkedIn. I just want to pause there. Do any of those things jump out at anyone as, hey, that's really interesting, we should do that?
Yeah, I have to admit the CI win of the week, I think is really a good one. That's definitely something I would love to kind of promote those in-house, because it helps drive that view of, yeah, this is something I can do.
Okay. Love it. Any other comments?
Since this is a monthly call, would it be better to have maybe just go on a monthly versus a week basis? I understand the point of highlighting the wins for a week, but I think these are maybe you submit the top 4 for the month, and then you vote for the winner for the month type deal. Just some thoughts.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, and in my mind, when I was thinking about this one, it's kind of like what Edge is saying. How do we get something to you all that you can promote internally? They can say, hey, this came as a result of our 5S program, or this came as a result of our teaching people how to do A3s or anything along those lines to help you all promote within your companies is what I was thinking. So, okay, other comments? All right. So then in the spirit of thinking ahead, here's topics I was brainstorming kind of myself and looking through my network and kind of thinking of what's top of mind and what I hear from people. And so this is where I'm starting and where I might go hunt for my guest speakers next year. Making your corporate values real. Most of our companies have some kind of statement of values. I suspect that many of us on the phone might question how well we live those values. And so getting someone to kind of speak how you translate values into real action. Obviously, AI is a constant topic. We're doing some playing around with large language models. So this is one where I could bring one of my team members in to talk a little bit about what we're seeing in making active use of large language models. Innovation, I've often said when I do talks that, and it'd be interesting to hear if you all agree with this, but to me, continuous improvement at its best opens up space for us to invest in research and development, in innovating. And that's, to me, that's like the aspiration in my mind of continuous improvement is like, hey, I'm all of a sudden innovating on my business now in a way that I never was before. So thinking about the structure of how we create innovation, I've been talking with some folks that way, and I feel like that could be a really good conversation for us. AI and data security. I think I was at a talk and listening to someone talk about data security and now with AI, and I think it freaked me out. So that's how that one got on here. Understanding your customer's voice. We're doing some voice-to-customer work right now. And I think that's always a top of mind component, how you take that customer voice and translate it into something useful. Statistical process controls and practicing for the knowledge extraction to document and train on processes. So it's one thing to say that we don't have documented processes. It's another thing to instruct people on how to go create them and how to think about what they do every day. So this is where my mind is at. I kind of stepped back and looked at it and said, maybe there's some foundational CI stuff missing from here, but I don't know. I like it. Any comments on this or additional topics you'd like me to consider?
Saeed here. Just a quick comment. There is a book by Art Smalley called 4 Types of Problems. It starts with troubleshooting and then gap to standard, gap to next level, and then basically open-ended, making the going to the next level, wherever they may be. And I think that's pretty much what we are talking about here, but you kind of broke it down. And I think that's where we are. And in terms of taking the business to the next level, in terms of in an open-ended manner, I think that's pretty much what you have covered here. Just, continuous improvement in terms of a way to research and take the organization to the next level.
That is kind of where I was going, was not like, hey, let's teach 5S. I know there were some comments that I got that said, we want some lunch and learn kind of stuff in here. But most of the comments that I've received when I've talked with people is more along what you're saying, Saeed, which is like, keep giving me something to take it to the next level, what we're doing. Yeah, Scott.
Saeed brought up Art Smalley. I was just going to say, in connection with your AI and data security, I'm not sure if you know the work that he's doing with AI and LEI right now.
I don't. I would need to go look that up, but that sounds like something I should do. Okay.
I agree. Be cool to have him as maybe a guest.
Okay. Excellent. Other comments? I'm going to keep us moving here. I would welcome people to email me thoughts as I will take this and start to put together speakers and then roll out the plan for next year. November will be our last one, so we typically take December off. So we're doing that again this year. And so November will be the last one for 2026. I have John Forsberg coming. I've known John forever. He's a ex-Motorolan like me. really deep understanding of Six Sigma, and has taken Six Sigma over the years to more transactional environments, which I always think is interesting. So I asked him to come and speak with us and bring some things about Six Sigma that are relevant to our organizations today. So he's going to come do that in November. I hope you will attend. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Edge and let you lead us from here.
Excellent. So yeah, let me do this. I'm going to get into presentation mode. So let me just get over to the right component here.
That's always the challenge, isn't it? Making sure that
It can be. So hopefully you guys see my screen right now, and it actually shows. Okay, fantastic. We'll start there. So just a little bit about me. So Edge Coble, I'm with Director of Continuous Improvement at Analog Devices. I've been in continuous improvement for over 25 years now, and actually have made more of my bread and butter of that. More of my career has actually been in the admin space. Just a quick show of hands. How many people are using idea boards, huddle boards, SQDC boards today in your environment? Okay, let's see a few hands go up. So some of this might seem very familiar to you. Some of it might seem rudimentary, but want to definitely get through and talk about how I've seen benefit of doing this at other companies, and especially when it works well. Yeah, let's see. All right. Yeah, it looks like I'll have to do that with this controller. So for today, we're going to just go through. We'll have have a little bit of an activity. I believe in having an interactive dialogue with my presentation, because the last thing you want to do is just hear me talk for 15 minutes. We'll talk about a little bit about what a CIB is, or continuous improvement board, as I like to call it. Then from there, we'll talk about how does it work. And then lastly, about some of the CIB basics and some tips there. We can actually do some of that in the Q&A as well, too. All right, so let's get started. We'll play a little bit of a game. So the first thing I want you to do, for those of you who know, yes, it's from War Games. For what we would like you to do is actually just either take a mental note or physically write it down. Don't shout it out, because we'll come back to this. But I want you to say, what's wrong with this picture? That's all we're going to do. You have about 5 seconds to do it. They automatically go through. I'm not timing it. So let's get ready. Right. So what's wrong with this picture? Once again, don't shout it out. So you make a mental note. We have 4 of these. What's the problem here? What about this one? Yeah, last but not least. Okay. And we'll go through those very shortly. So one of the things about continuous improvement is, at least in my opinion, is that really we're teaching people how to see. And a lot of times people talk about seeing waste, but it's actually about seeing flow interruptions, right? Waste is a byproduct of bad flow. And so that's what we're really trying to teach them, is to get better flow. And in the manufacturing world, the good news is that that's pretty obvious, right? You can see when inventory builds up. You can see when, there are bottlenecks, things of that nature. In the admin world, well, we all have laptops, and people talk about how busy they are, or they have too many meetings, but you really don't see the flow of their work. And so what you have to do is also teach them that element as well, too. So what about this? Now you can come off mute. You can tell me, because I'm not going to check all the chats. So what do you see here? What was the problem? Bananas. There's 6 bananas. Holy smokes. Yeah. So somebody edited this book and it missed that. That's an expensive defect, right? So yeah, the 6 bananas. What about this one?
They're all the same.
They are all the same, but what's the problem?
Okay. Different has 2
it's
capital
specifically
F.
asking which one's different.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because it is which one's different. But I had 4 different problems. This one was which one? Number 2? Notice that I still had number 1 on the slide.
No.
And at first you might say, well, so what? That didn't impact my customers. Slide was incorrect. But as we know, it's those smaller things that add up to bigger issues, which then all of a sudden people get really excited to form a whole team and go solve that. And then they're exhausted. And the next day they're like, oh yeah, I don't need to pay attention to that stuff. And I'll tell you right now, yeah, we see that where I'm working. We see a lot of small things build up and they get handed off to somebody else and then sort of disappear. The other thing too is technically dinosaurs spelled out as opposed to being a picture here, but yeah, that's a little bit different. What about this one? What's wrong here?
Repeated word spot.
Yeah, and it's a hard one. I have dyslexia, so this one totally disappears and runs by me. But yeah, and then this last one, this is the eye test. What'd you see here?
A piece
Piece
of
of
bread.
bread on the counter.
Oh man, you guys know this one. That's good. That's good. Yeah, there's a piece of bread there, and that definitely test your vision or else your technology. But that's the thing, right? You constantly have to be able to say, what do I see? Right.
This is the group that I would think would do best at this sort of thing. I'm just saying, like, there's a profile here on this call. I'm just saying.
And it's so
OCD.
Yeah, I was at the Northeast Lean Conference. I presented there, and man, people are just like bang, bang, bang. I was like, nah, there's nothing I could hold against these folks, which I love. I love being with my folks, so yeah, it's always good. But when you think about world-class CI, right? You want everybody to be at some level to be able to problem solve. So when you're really starting out, yeah, it's crawling. People are seeing you're in that early phase, and people actually admitting that they're seeing issues and flow interruptions. We eventually want to get to that point where everybody's, they're practicing, they're walking around, but they're not working together. And it's once you get to that point of actually moving quickly, you're mentoring. And everybody's mentoring. I can still remember a day when I was at Teradyne and I threw up a slide and had a Pareto chart in there, and the VP of supply chain criticized my slide, saying that Pareto's done wrong. And he went up and he diagrammed it in front of everybody. Now, first, I felt very small, but then I realized later that he was training me, and he realized that was his responsibility as a leader to do that. And say, this is how you actually develop a good Pareto and make sure it's not flat. He went to all these details, and he was training everybody at the same time too, not criticizing, just like, my job's to teach, coach, and teach. And that's what you need to get to, right? That everybody feels comfortable doing that. So continuous improvement board, sometimes known as a huddle board. Everybody has a little bit different. Some people call them idea boards. I don't like that because then it sort of pushes the pressure that you have to come up with an idea. And then, yes, SQDC boards or SQDP boards down on the floor definitely follow sort of the same principles. But it's a quick way to, sort of identify those problems. It should be aligned to your corporate goals and department. It allows everybody to contribute, which I think is great. The cross-pollination is good too. If you're doing this well, and you know who your suppliers are and who your customers are internally, then you're having conversations with those two groups on a regular basis, and you're actually talking about problems that are going from one board to the next. The other thing is that I've noticed that when teams do this, there's a sense of accomplishment and pride. They operate better, because it's not management led. It's actually led by the people as well too. And all problems really should get through here first. And we'll talk a little bit more on why that is. Now, what it's not, a lot of people will think that's more work, but the reality is you're carving this out of a weekly meeting anyway, especially if you're on the admin side of the business. If you're, doing daily stand-ups, this is something you're doing per shift. And we all know that it shouldn't be a suggestion box, right? That doesn't work well. Somebody's grading those. That's not how it operates. It's not project specific. People will view it as a complaint area. It's not. It's really saying, I'm noticing things. It's not all your department projects. That's different. If you have prolonged improvement efforts, there are other tools like we know. We know using an A3 or a Kaizen or rapid improvement event, or maybe even that goes to a kata. There's all different places that we can put that. And don't let the good ideas go to die here. Make sure you're doing this on a regular basis. And I'll be able to explain that some more too. Now, I bring up this slide. This is actually my management style of continuous improvement. Feel free to, leverage as much as you want. But I feel there's sort of 4 different styles. So I'm going to start off with the one that's the worst, parental. This is where you might say, I don't see this, but this is actually where you'll have managers who take all the problems and solve them themselves. Do any of you see that in your work where you're working? I see some heads nodding. The other thing too is that their people are not very skilled. They can't do the job of their manager if their manager's out. And that's a dangerous situation. So that's not CI, right? CI is all about training, leveling, that we have job matrices, and we understand that our job is to make sure people can get better at what they do. Authoritarian, I think we all have been there, right? I'm waiting for you to tell me what to do. And there's the operative word, waiting, which is already a waste. So we don't want that. Then there's the aspect, hey, I leave you alone. You're able to go off and do all sorts of things, but is that tied to the goals of the company? Are you moving as a team, solving the same problem to get it through? And that you're not bouncing ideas off each other. And that's why collaborative is the best methodology. And that's where you want CI leadership to operate. They understand that we're working together on a regular basis, and the continuous improvement board forces that behavior. That's the beauty of it, because each week you're getting together, you're talking about the things that are bothering you, the things that, you're one step away from either leaving the company or just turning your car around and going back home. That's where you want to get to. Now, if I were to show you, this car, I'm sure everybody, even though they don't know the make or model of this, would say, I could drive that. If you're familiar driving, that's pretty easy. It's all automatic. If I did this, right, some of you might say, well, I know stick shift. And yeah, I've driven on the other side of the road. I'm familiar with that. And there are probably very few people, if any, who can fly an airplane. But for some reason, and I think this is the behavior, especially when you get into heavy belting programs, nothing wrong with Six Sigma, but there's this mentality, only certain people are the experts to do something. And that's not it with continuous improvement. We're all problem solvers. We solve problems on a regular basis. Otherwise, we wouldn't survive as humans and as individuals. So what you want to do is you want to say, everybody can do this. You don't need a lot of understanding of what a problem is. You just need to be able to articulate a good problem, understand what the primary waste is that made that problem occur, and then from there you can start to drive to root cause. Because with that, you can either mitigate or you can reduce, or mitigate, or you can eliminate the problem. You make it mistake proof. So that's what we want to do. So let me talk about why things start on the CI board, right? How many of you have worked in companies where it seems everything, no matter how small the project is, becomes a problem? It's one of these large projects, got to form a whole team, so forth. Yeah, Dylan, do you want to talk about it real fast? What you've seen?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, turning molehills into mountains.
Mm-hmm. And that's so true, right? And I think that's when you become tool focused, there's such a emphasis on, we need to use all the tools. How many of you go to Home Depot and buy everything that's in Home Depot because you're just going to go, maybe you're going to clean something at your house, or you're going to need to hammer something or put in light bulbs? You buy everything? Of course not. But there's that mentality, it's all tool based. And I think that's what happens. What we want to do, though, is see that something's gone wrong, because otherwise it turns into this. And if we get to that point, then this becomes a behavior. And we don't want to get to that situation where we just start accepting it and say, fires happen all the time. I have no control over it. And that's also the operative phrase. I have no control over this. And when you give people the power of the boards, they have control over fixing things. So my methodology is relatively simple. I have a couple things that are a little bit different, but I tell people, don't spend more than 15 minutes. Some teams like to spend up to 30 minutes of their time doing this. And then I sort of the standard work. It's really a checklist. It's in the card itself too. I'm using this in Microsoft Teams. This happens to be Microsoft Planner. Yes, there are other tools out there. You use there's a list functions. There's obviously Smart Sheets that's out there. Then you can get to like a KaiNexus level as well too. So there's lots of different things to do, but this is a simple, easy way, especially if you have groups all over. If you want to use a physical board, that's fine too. We know that everything starts with a problem. It then gets to a reviewed stage. Eventually it progresses, and then obviously implement. And that's it. Those are the 4 stages. Sometimes things have to get canceled. Yes, some things might be, something a little bit difficult to do. But here's the thing, when you're actually doing the work, it's a pull system. And that's critical, because otherwise this becomes your Saturday to-do list. So you talk about the ones that have implemented for that month and to make sure they still stuck. After they've moved on, they're working well, and they're doing as they intended, then you can close it. But you review it. And if it's not, it goes back to either reviewed to get more data and what have you and analyze it. Or you might say, hey, you know what? We need to create a new card because we got 50% of this, but there's something else here as well too. Let's go down a little bit on the Pareto. Progressing, once again, it's a status update. What's sticking? Where are you having trouble with? How are things there? If managers are seeing that it's sticking for a while, maybe they pull it off. Maybe they say, hey, we got to form a small team to really do this. Same thing with reviewed. It really gets down to, do you need more information? Or in the situation, you just don't have the bandwidth. That's perfectly fine. Just because you put it up here doesn't mean the race. And then there are all the new problems that you're experiencing in the week. And you just label it, try to figure out what waste it is based on the problem statement that you've written. Does that make sense? Yeah, like I said, it's relatively easy. And I love that teams could set this up very quickly. So the basics are.
I like and I just want to add when I look at it, for me, it's backwards. But
Right.
Your point is that it's a pull system, and I don't think we look at problems that way, right? We push all the problems into the funnel, and surprisingly, very few get out the other end.
Right. And when we push them, what is the first thing we do? We have to go and prioritize them. Doesn't make any sense. Do you prioritize every single day? No, I have work and it's getting through, and I know I'm pulling it.
Yeah.
And that also because we read left to right. That's why I purposely have it in that flow, because it forces us to think a little bit differently, right? It's the whole folding your arm exercise all over again. So great point, Matt. I also tell people, no, the problem is too small. And I've had some folks who think that's crazy, but it works well. And then the next thing I know, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm fixing so much small stuff. They're all the pebbles in my shoe. Always rotate who runs the board. This is not a management tool. And as much as that might hurt in the beginning, yes, there might be some people who feel uncomfortable doing that. Let them have, they can invite a friend. So you can do teams of 2 if you need to. And you only need 2 people to meet. If any time you're like, oh, we don't have enough people, if there are 2 there, they can meet and they can talk about the cards they have, because that creates the whole FOMO effect where people start to go, oh my goodness, I missed the board this week. What you want to stay away from is loading up on the waste. There's only one waste for every problem. I can guarantee that. You might say you see others, but that primary waste causes a cascade of those others to do. That's very hard, and I have other training that's on that. Dumping problems on other CIBs. I have something I'm not going to take care of. I'm going to tell you just to go do it. That's not right. You should have a discussion, and letting problems linger on the CIB. Once again, manager takes it, team has to take it. Maybe it has to go to an A3 or something else. And then obviously writing a solution. That might seem common, but you got to be really early on. You have to make sure the fundamentals are done well, or else it breaks. So this is what a problem card looks like. I will tell you, this looks like a government form, right? There's a lot on here, but it's not. It's really just a thought exercise. You have to write a good problem statement. You have to sign it yourself. And where it says add label, I don't have that clearly here. You can actually change the tags in Microsoft Planner very easily. And I just have what I call the vows, because I actually use the Toyota 3Ms, not the 7 ways, so technically 9. And I have a list right there, and then people just pick from that list, and I just put one up. And then, yeah, you can, if you see it, there's a little bit of PDCA that actually exists in there. But once again, if it's a real just do it and they understand the problem, they understand the waste, they're just going to go fix it. They don't need to fill all this out, but it's a thought exercise. And then there's always a question about, should you reward people for doing this? This is my approach. You should be doing these things. It's just part of what you do. It's the muscle memory you want to create. Now, I know companies do that, but I'm just like, you know what? It should come from within, that I get excited to do it. I'm changing my day. And that's why I do this work. And then, yeah, let's open it up for questions.
So I actually want to go back to that reward, but not yet. Let's go do. So I actually want to call out on Dave Keeson. And the question for this month was, describe how your teams collaborate to identify and resolve workflow disruptions, and tell us about the challenges you observe. As always, a lot of really great stuff in here, so thank you for everyone that responded. And Dave, yours was pretty short, but I know a bit about your business, and I thought you're kind of encapsulating what I think Edge is trying to solve here. And so I was kind of just thinking if you could expand on a little bit of what you said, and then Edge, if you could help Dave out. So Dave, you said the basic problem is we don't identify living with it, and workarounds are the norms. So I feel like that's exactly what we're talking about. And Dave, can you expand on that a little bit for Edge?
It's something that I actually rewrote that down here just now. Different levels of, it's one thing to see the problem. It's another thing to be able to be a good problem solver. And I love the problem. I've diluted most of it down to lean is problem solving. We even have a book club called
all it is. Exactly.
The problem
Yeah.
solvers book club is
Yeah.
what we call it. That's the whole thing. Find a problem, reduce it, find another one.
Exactly.
But the struggle I have is the workarounds and so forth. But the struggle to, even for some people to understand that it's within their power to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Even when I get
Yeah.
past yes, they have recognized it, but they've learned they think they have to live with it. How do I adjust that view? I sometimes getting a couple wins in just a conversation. I think some of it comes from the parental aspect of it, especially for guys in the plant. The office solves problems, not the plant guys. You aren't smart enough.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. You wouldn't hire people who can't do the work. And let's face it, especially in a modern factory, it's pretty. You need to be really good at doing certain things. And most of those folks are problem solvers by nature because they're very mechanically inclined. I'm going to tell you something you probably don't want to hear. I hate to say it, but that's a management problem. Because that's the reality, right? Is that if somebody's noticing a problem and then they feel they're not empowered to do that, well, why do they don't feel empowered? It's because their manager's not helping them feel empowered. Which also means that if they were noticing a problem, they could put it on the board. They already have said, I feel empowered to do this. If they're doing a workaround and the manager notices the workaround but hasn't asked the proper question, it's like, hey, by the way, why are you doing this workaround? Because it's not following standard work, which is another reason that managers should be doing this, right? If they're not following standard work, then they should say, does this work better? Let's talk about this. Why don't we bring that to the board? And all of a sudden, it's this huge respect I respect the way you think as opposed to, I'm just going to tell you what to do. That's the shift that you have to have. It's really hard though, because you have to get your managers there.
I've looked at it a little in the order of things. So you're saying start with the board to build the power.
Mm-hmm.
I've focused on building the power and then developing the board afterwards. You would flip that around?
I might flip that around, but I don't know your environment. And also too, I don't know your managers. Your managers might feel, they might feel threatened by the board because their first thing is, oh my gosh, look at my board. It's filled with all sorts of problems. I'm a terrible manager. And you actually want to celebrate the other thing, which is, oh my gosh, you guys notice all this stuff? That might be,
that's my other quote is problems are good things, folks.
Awesome.
Problems are good things.
Yeah. My favorite team, I'm still connected with them from Gemline, John Pappas and the whole facility maintenance team. And they weren't taking tickets and putting them on the board. It was all stuff they noticed. And it was just, they would put up 2, 3, or 4, and they were totally being my target. My target was always saw one problem per person per month. But, that is a lot. They were solving 2 or 3 a month each because they were just banging through it, and they'd all celebrate with each other. Like, yeah, it's really good. Holy smokes, how did I not notice that? They would get on each other for not noticing things. So and John would just step back. But I also like that when things got tough, he's like, I'll take this. I'll go try to figure this out because I think this needs our leadership, better buy-in. But it might be a few weeks before I get back. But he always got back. And because of that, the trust that's built with his team is at a whole nother level. So yeah, like I said, I don't know your environment. If you want to talk about more with me, at another time, by all means, we can do that.
Dave, did you get something you can use there?
Yeah. And Matt, since you and I've spoken last, the structure has changed a little bit for me. And I don't know how up to date you are with the latest where I work, but it's actually become more difficult now to get the message. So
Sounds like you and I need to follow up outside.
Yeah.
All right. We'll do. Rob, go ahead, and then I'm gonna go ahead, Rob.
You're talking to me, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I'm reacting to my reaction is to two things. Ed, somewhere on one of your slides, you had the phrase "more work."
Yes.
And I just heard this phrase that problems are good things. So putting those concepts together, right? Employment is good. Being useful is good. And when I hear this statement, it's more work, I think that is a irresponsibly ambiguous reaction. Because when I think of the difference between, under the umbrella of infrastructure, when our marginal costs are unacceptably high, it means that is the undesirable work. We want to scale things better.
Right.
So we're constantly building, we're constantly solving problems, which means we are reducing the marginal cost. That stuff is not free. That's upfront cost. So, I love to use analogies like a train system in a big city, a written menu in a restaurant, name tags at a large conference. Why do we? Name tags, it's more work. It's about infrastructure and scalability. And so I've had countless managers all through the course of my career say, Robert, you're creating more work. I'm like, no, it is the work. We're here we're constantly building, we're constantly obsessed. I'm not going to apologize for being obsessed to lower marginal cost.
I think, man, Rob,
that shit is not free.
Yeah, and so here's something, and you guys feel free to use it. I'm starting to use this quote that my dad developed, but I say continuous improvement is the R&D of operations. And I'm not just talking about operations, because I'm talking about operations within any team. And think about, analog spends close to, I think, like 18-19% of all what we make on R&D. So that means, guess what? You should be spending about 1 day a week fully doing continuous improvement. I will tell you that in the factories and fabs, this is one reason I'm not over there, because they run pretty well. They've already implemented this year that in everybody's performance, the goals and objectives, they have to do at least a bare minimum of 1 hour continuous improvement each week. And if managers see that somebody's spending more than 4 hours, the question is not telling them get back to work. It's how can I help you? Because it looks like you're on a big problem. And I should have noticed that earlier. They're totally flipping the script there, which I would absolutely love. But you're so right, Rob, because people give all sorts of excuses.
All right, let me get to another. I want to make sure I get to another question here, and I wanted to go to Ruth, and hopefully, Ruth, you were on screen and you went somewhere. Hopefully, you're still there. But
so
I'm here.
Okay, good. So you touch on a point that I think is it's at the foundation of some of these things, and so I'm going to read. I'm going to condense a little bit what you wrote, but I'm going to read your statement. The two main challenges are that support teams, quality safety, can be forgotten about if they don't happen to be in an area to pull into the conversation. And the other is that there are very few records of decisions and actions owners since there are no emails or minutes to look back at. The role of documentation, right, and the role that a board plays in visualizing that information, I do think is a really important part of it that we kind of miss because there's documentation. No, we don't write things down, therefore they're not really there. So Ruth, first to you, do you want to expand on that at all? And then let's see if Edge can help us.
Yeah, so the main issue that we have here is more we don't do any meetings at all. We have like one team meeting that our entire leadership team meets weekly, and that's really it. I shouldn't say it. We do have a daily huddle that we do in front of the board, but the board really isn't built out. We have our our kind of main KPIs on it, and that's really it. And we don't really speak to the numbers on there about what are we doing today to make a difference. We kind of just do more of a look back of what did we do yesterday. And that's it. And so if you don't happen to be in the room, if there's a process upset or if there's a conversation about, what a problem solving conversation and I'm not in the room or safety's not in the room, no one looks for them to pull them in. They just don't get brought into the conversation because there's no even thought to set up a structured meeting. And then there's no like follow up in an email saying like, hey, per the conversation we had earlier, I would like to document the decision we had, or there's no action logs, there's nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, you have definitely a difficult challenge. I don't envy your challenge there. Yeah, because, especially with a system like this, and mind you, you can, paper works, but you can go to digital systems that actually might, with, some smart screens, that might change the behavior. But the question really gets down to, if you're having one board meeting, then it's sort of refrigerator art, right? It's like, oh yeah, look, we have some metrics, as opposed to what you want to do with the board is it actually should go down to each department and even the sub department. So you get down to the frontline workers, specifically frontline workers and their manager, or, and if that happens to be for various cells or what have you, or department, machines, that's fine too, because those are completely different. So in my last company, one of the people in the finance team wanted to bring it all the way up and have one board for finance, and the credit department refused. They're like, no, our problems are different from your problems. We're going to be bored. Let us focus on our problems. And I completely supported their decision. Caused a little friction, but it started working better. The finance team did that, but also too, credit could always go and visit their board and vice versa. Like, we published the times when all the boards were done. On the floor, by the way, we made sure it was done all at the same time, because otherwise you have all this, weird transportation issues and motion and stuff. So literally the floor would stop, do their huddle, do that, and then boom, get started, and do that for each of the shifts as well too. So it worked pretty well.
Ruth, does that give you something that you can act on, or do you need any more?
Yeah, I think the goal is definitely to have more of the individual departments active on the board. We hope to get there. It's just taking a little bit longer. I think having people actually speaking to things on the board will help them kind of understand the value of the board as well. So I like the idea of having it all at the same time as well. I think that's making sure everyone is busy at the same time rather than trying to get everyone kind of sporadically busy throughout the day, making sure everyone kind of books the same time. It makes sense. So
it creates the culture of, hey, I start the gym in the morning, or I have my cup of coffee in the morning, right? Everybody's doing the same thing. You're one culture then.
Yeah.
I want to squeeze one more in. I know we're at time. If you need to drop. But Scott Winter, you had a note or a comment in yours that I want anything additional you want to add and hear Edge speak to. And you had kind of several statements in there, but the last one was collaboration is perceived to be slower than not collaborating. And what I find is people don't quite say that, what you're saying there, but the way they act is they don't pull the people into the room or into the discussion that are needed, and they just charge forward because it's easier, right, than collaborating. And Scott, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I don't think so. I think just self-explanatory. I think it is a perception that we have, just kind of like some of the perceptions we were talking about earlier and some of the other areas. Yeah.
I think, Scott, you're right on it. I always tell people, right, CI is, you got to go slow to go fast. And people get frustrated, right? Because we're impatient by nature. And especially when you're going to solve problems, especially if it's a bigger problem. That's why I always do a side POC first, because that way you know who your suppliers are and who your customers. And by the way, those are people you're going to be bringing into the room to talk about that problem, as opposed to, oh, we're going to invite our friends and family kind of mentality, a lot of problem solving. And yeah, collaboration takes more, but it's like watching a good basketball team. Yeah, you can have one guy. If we just have one player run down with the ball all the time, might work. But if you see that fluid motion where people are actually in harmony working, they start getting better at problem solving and get faster and faster at it. Otherwise, just like you do in IT, you have debt, right? You put in a bad process. It's not 100% there. You haven't written standard work for it. It really didn't drive a root cause and only solved your problem. It wasn't thinking about, enterprise thinking. So those are all the things that happen. But it's fine. We just want to get to being fluid and have good flow. And sometimes early on that's a little difficult because people have different opinions. So yeah.
And maybe some of you guys with the more experience might be able to help me out here, but I guess my theory is that people will learn that if I can help them learn that. So I might let people learn the hard way on that and then try to gently bring it up afterwards. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that.
My whole thought is if there's an example that's already happened, use that first. And true, because sometimes pain does help, but you don't want to burn down the building, so to speak. But yeah, use an example where people weren't in the right room, the right, yeah.
I'll partially parrot Edge and say, if you have a good example, and if you don't, then Scott, your path makes sense. I would tell you that one of my team members, she'll always say, "Who's your team? Where's your team? What's the team?" And when people stutter, and that's where I love your point on the SIPOC, like that. Frankly, I think my own team, we maybe were better at that a while ago, and we may have got a little bit out of the habit ourselves. But where's that SIPOC? Oh, well, it's extra work, right? Well, then let's go to Robert's comments on
15 minutes of work. It takes almost no time. It's only 15 minutes if you do it right. Yeah.
And now I know I have all my suppliers and my customers involved. And so I think it's where's your team? And then Scott, when you get pushback, sure, let them fail, but make sure don't miss the opportunity to turn that failure into a story that you then use for future, for future folks to learn from.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with also the project charter as well too, being a good document. But I will say that before you even start the project charter, just do a SIPOC, because that way you understand all the players very quickly, so you can actually put them on the charter if it's a bigger project. Yeah.
Edge, any last comments for us?
Just find a pilot group, find somebody who's really excited. Like I said, on the floor, SQDC, you can use it the same way if you want. Always make sure you do safety first, no matter what. But if you're on the admin side, find a team that's, struggling and says, hey, I want some help. And, those are the managers who are treading water, but they recognize that in order to be a good manager, it's really about empowering their team to help them.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Edge. Appreciate you offering your time and experience to the group. Thank you to the group. And I will look forward to seeing you all in November. Have a great day.
Yeah. Awesome. Feel free to reach out if you want to. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Edge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
All right. I think that went well.
Great. Nice work. Great. We'll have you back again next year. So think of another topic. All right.
I will. Hey, I love teaching the SIPOC, or I teach about, I just taught the one about waste at Northeast Lean. And it was pretty well received, because I think a lot of times people, they don't think about how they use the waste. You get taught them and then you don't use them. Like, holy smokes, it's gold if you know how to use it.
You need to understand it's hard to apply. That's my, I say over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And I find so many consultants and trainers out there, they teach it, but then they don't understand why they're teaching it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, you missed this. And Mark DeLuzio in his book Flatline actually talks about the 9 wastes and how it actually is structured throughout the company. It's really a good diagram. So,
okay, I'm not familiar with that, so maybe that's something I got to go learn.
It's a small book. I wish he'd gone. He was one of the originators of Danaher business system, primarily in finance. I wish he'd gone more into how they did finance there. I think that was the one thing that was lacking from the book. But otherwise, it's a fairly good book. It's only 100 pages, so yeah.
Awesome. Thank you again, Edge. You have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.